guide technology.
Yes.
And that now during this time, what is a good tool, a good material to make a wand from?
It can be a natural material, but the most important thing, whether it's a natural material like wood or something that has been fashioned as a conductive material like copper, the idea is it's the proportions that are important. The idea of the ratios, the idea that the waveguide is actually indicative and representative of certain wavelengths and frequencies. Here's the thing to understand. There was a time when individuals on your planet in ancient cultures understood how to amplify the electromagnetic field around your body in a certain way. This involves the idea of understanding that there is just above the layer of your skin, a few centimeters above the layer of your skin, there is a different kind of a field composed of very quickly spinning electrons. This is what many people typically call the auric field, but it's an electromagnetic field composed of electrons that are spinning at a very high rate of speed. Certain kinds of breathing and meditations can amplify the rotation of these electrons, amplify and magnify the effect of this electronic field around your body, electromagnetic field around your body. And it is when you have learned to amplify that field and get them all spinning at a certain frequency and in alignment with one another, that you have the ability to siphon off some of that energy from your body using these waveguides that you're now remembering as wands, and direct that energy for a variety of purposes.
So if you're interested in contact with extra or with elementals, then using a natural material would be conducive to that.
It can be, but again, it depends upon the person and how they relate to the idea of the wand, its proportions, and the material made thereof. So it will be an individual thing.
So as far as those proportions you were describing, can you give us any of those proportions? Or did you just do that and I missed it?
Well, again, some of it is based on the natural phi ratios of 1 to 1.618, because that's what your body is based on. So it's an extrapolation of that, but it's also picking up on the wavelength itself that is generated by the spinning electron field around your body. So that would have to be measured, because it will be slightly different for every individual, and therefore the proportions and dimensions of the wand would also be slightly different for every individual.
Okay. Maybe we'll explore this more deeply going, in the future. Is there a vibrational phone number for the magical world of Avalon?
It is a green fleur-de-lis against a black background. Now, there can be some augmentations to this, but in general, an emerald green fleur-de-lis against a black background can, for many individuals, put you in touch with the vibrational frequency archetypally of what you are referring to as Avalon.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so these are questions that are more based on consciousness and personal growth and everything.
Yes.
What is your definition of conflict?
That which is out of alignment with itself, in a challenging way that allows it, if taken advantage of, to grow, or, if not, to descend further into conflict, until it is a pressure, until it becomes a pressure that forces individuals to go in a new direction.
Okay, and interestingly, one person was talking about pressure, and that internal pressure, and it was like making them feel like they have to do this and do more, and and that's not the same kind of pressure you're talking about. That's self-inflicted pressure.
I'm not talking about the pressure that comes from holding on to negative beliefs. although there is some crossover here. I'm talking about the idea of an energetic pressure that comes from being out of alignment. Of course, that's based on the idea of out of alignment beliefs, negative beliefs, but we're talking about something that actually begins to happen neurologically to you in a way that throws you off center, in a way that can keep you off balance, in a way that ultimately can make you choose to back yourself into a corner so that there's no other way out but up. Now, some people will not necessarily choose up, and they may continue to descend and devolve. But the idea, again, is that it is a self-created pressure coming from the idea of imbalance, misalignment within the energy of the self. Again, yes, to some degree connected to the idea of fear-based beliefs, but experienced a little bit differently, in the sense that it's all the energy is going to sort of crushing you into a smaller space, forcing you into a misalignment that is painful enough to give you the opportunity to decide to move in a new direction to free yourself. Although, again, some people will not choose to do so, and therefore may choose to die as a result.
Yes, and you see that sometimes where someone has a bad break, so to speak, where things really go south, a tragedy or something. Some people are able to take that and turn lemons into lemonades.
And some people can turn lemonade back into lemons, yes.
But then they start having a series of negative synchronicities, and that shows you that you are gone down the rabbit hole, right? When that happens.
A particular kind of rabbit hole, yes. But again, depending on how you use that, it can be very similar to what we have described before as the watermelon seed principle. When you are exerting this kind of conflictive pressure from above and below, the seed of your consciousness has really no choice but to spit out in a new direction. Otherwise, it will get crushed. But again, remember, you're always eternal. You always have another chance.
And so what would be your definition of a challenge?
A challenge is that which helps you grow, which helps you see more of yourself, which allows you to expand your perspective and your consciousness in a variety of ways, and is representative usually of the theme that you chose to explore that deals with transformation of yourself. Challenge is change. Challenge is the fifth law in action. Everything changes except the laws. So challenge is change in action, the fifth law in action.
So when someone is making decisions from unconscious beliefs,
yes,
can you share a little bit more with us about how do you know if the choices you're making and the effects you're receiving are from unconscious beliefs or conscious beliefs?
Well, very simply, if you're not conscious of the belief that is creating the way you are responding or reacting to experiences, then clearly they are unconscious. Therefore, that's why we always suggest that you actually go looking for them to make them conscious, because you'll see the reflection in your physical reality, perhaps in the form of frustration or confusion. Those kinds of indicators are in fact indicators that there may be unconscious beliefs that you're buying into. And therefore, that's why we always say, go looking for them, dive in, investigate yourself, find out where the frustration and confusion is being generated. They're being generated by unconscious beliefs. Make them conscious. You'll see what they're saying to you, and you'll realize that much of what they're saying aren't facts, they're just beliefs, and that they really make no sense in alignment with who you really prefer to be. That's why it's so important to make the beliefs conscious. So you don't just sit there and wonder, why am I so confused? Why am I so frustrated all the time? I don't understand. All it takes is understanding how things work, such as how beliefs manifest themselves and perpetuate themselves. And that it is important to ask yourself, what would I have to believe is true about myself in this circumstance to be experiencing what I'm experiencing? Those are the things that will allow, if you're willing, for an investigation into the unconscious mind to bring forth a light, a spotlight that will highlight the belief into the conscious mind so you can deal with it, so you have something to work with.
So when people choose to incarnate in this physical reality,
Linearly speaking, yes.
you mentioned something about you have to be tough, and is there someplace else where people who aren't tough incarnate?
Well, yes, sometimes people who aren't tough, just to use that word, also do incarnate on Earth, and it depends upon what it is they're here to explore that determines whether or not that will benefit them in a positive or a negative way. Nevertheless, yes, there are many different realms where you don't necessarily, again, just to use that convenient term, have to be so tough. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't have their own challenges. So the idea is that you're always learning. But remember that challenges don't have to be experienced from a negative perspective. Challenges are fun. Challenges are wondrous, creative things. So, yes, there are realities where you don't have to be quite as steadfast, in a sense, as what you may experience in the school of Earth, but that doesn't mean they don't have their own challenges.
And this is kind of funny. Why are some people late all the time? And what kind of a belief creates lateness?
Well, again, you're going to have to take that on a case-by-case basis because there are many different kinds of beliefs that will cause that, ranging from the idea of not quite understanding the concept of timing and still being too focused on time so that you're misaligning with the idea of your timing, all the way to someone else is not important enough for me to consider. So there can be many different kinds of belief systems that may need to come to light to understand the concept of lateness. Some of it has to do with dissolving sociological norms. Some of it may have to do, again, with the idea of finding your own true timing in things and allowing that to align with the best timing for others as well. Some of it may be changing the way you allow yourself to make appointments. It just has to do with whatever that person is dealing with as their particular challenge relating to time. And also it has to do with the fact that time and space are becoming more plastic and fluid and dissolving, and you don't all know how exactly to handle that yet because you're breaking your physical reality down and may not really be fully aligned yet with the idea of how you can relate to the concept of the way in which space and time now need to be experienced in the way your physical reality is changing. So any number of different kinds of reasons for that experience, but you would have to explore it on a person-by-person basis.
Thank you. And our last question,
Yes.
This heartfelt question from someone that is 15
Yes.
and doesn't feel like they're themselves. And it's a very hard feeling to describe. It's like they don't have memories of a past life, or the universe was blank. Let's see. They just seem to be exploring the nature of alternate realities and this reality. And so when you're 15, your brain is developed to a certain point,
Yes.
correct? And
Yes.
there is a pathway to understand how to relate to this reality that causes less pain and confusion.
And that's the formula.
So for a 15-year-old,
Even for anyone, the formula is the way. And remember, because the formula leaves nothing out that's relevant, the formula and synchronicity will adapt itself to the age and abilities of the person. So do the best you can to act on your passion on every level. That may mean simple things too. Remember, it's not about just having one expression of the idea. Many people on your planet misunderstand the phrase, act on your passion, find your passion, as if there's only one expression. That's a misunderstanding. That's a false assumption that there can only be one expression of your passion. So don't proceed from that. Proceed from the thing that, and the understanding that anything you do, anything and everything, from the simplest thing like taking a walk or reading a book, to a life-spanning career can be done in the most passionate way. There is always going to be the way that's the most passionate way for you, that aligns with you, no matter your age or capabilities. So allow synchronicity to bring you the opportunities and act on whatever you can that contains even just a little bit more excitement or attractiveness than anything else first, and let that be your guide through life, because it will always adapt itself to whatever capabilities, whatever point you're at in your life. It will adapt itself to you, because that's how it works, because it leaves nothing relevant out. Otherwise, it would be pointless if it brought you something you weren't capable of handling.
So the idea is that when you're 15, it's easier to follow your passion because you're more in touch with that often.
Maybe. Again, it depends upon the 15-year-old and what they've been taught up to this point.
But it's a good map for everyone, because it really does turn on your internal GPS and
Yes.
help you find the map that is already within you.
Exactly. Because you all come with that. And therefore, by following the formula of acting on your passion to the best you can, no insistence or assumption on the outcome, staying in a positive state so that no matter what happens, even if it's something you don't prefer, you can still, by extracting the positive energy from it, experience something beneficial and move on. And of course, at the same time, always investigate what you believe to be true about yourself at any given moment, so that you'll always be clarifying yourself and divesting yourself and letting go of those things that don't work for you as belief systems you may have been brought up with. So it's that process, and we have rendered that down into this simple instruction manual and formula for everyone at every stage. It works for everyone that way because it is representative of the very nature and structure of the existence that you belong to, that you're a part of.
Yeah, you don't have to figure it out all at once. You just take it a step at a time.
The process is the point. As many people on your planet have said, the journey is the destination. Whatever's going on right now in your present is the most important thing. There is nothing more important than what's happening right now. Deal with it fully, use it fully to your advantage, and you'll make room for the next thing to come in, and the next, and the next, and the next, and you'll feel more acceleration and more alignment by doing it that way. Invalidate anything that's there as if it's wrong or doesn't belong, and you make it stick because you haven't yet used it up for the reason that it appeared in your life. You can always use things you don't prefer in the way that you do prefer. They will always be capable of giving you a benefit if you remain in a positive relationship with it. Nothing happens by accident. No matter what manifests, even if it's something you don't prefer, you have to know it's got to be there for a reason that could serve you. And if you stay in a positive state, you'll be able to use what you don't prefer in a way that you do prefer. If nothing else, it goes back to what we said before. Seeing something that you don't prefer gives you more clarity by contrast of what you do prefer. And that's a positive way to use what you don't prefer. So we thank you at this time for these interactions. They are all beautiful and creative and expansive. Now, by all means, you may proceed to lock them and crystallize them into yourself in whatever way, shape, or form you so desire by participating, if you wish,